Now it's time for Power of Prophecy, continuing the legacy of Tex Mars, exposing evil, and promoting Jesus Christ as Savior. Here's your host, Jerry Barrett.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Power of Prophecy. I'm your host, Jerry Barrett. Honored to have you join me again this week. If there was any doubt that the demon rats were socialist at heart, that could not wait to rule with an iron fist, to display the tyranny that is in their hearts. We witnessed 4 years of it under whoever the puppet master was to Joe Biden, whether it's Joe's wife, Jill, Obama, Soros, it's up for grabs. But we saw the weaponization of government, and not just against Trump, but against American people. They claimed that January 6th was an insurrection. They threw the book at people that were just there. I saw videos of people walking through the Capitol Rotunda. Were they supposed to be there? No. Were they trespassing? Sure. But I saw them walking through the Rotunda and admiring the history of America. A lot of presidents have given lip service that the White House is the people's house, except when they're Democrats. And that seems to be the case when it comes to Congress. They are our lords and masters, and we are their serfs. The poor people that were arrested, charged, kept in the Washington, D.C. gulag, some of them without habeas corpus, many of them mistreated, but because they supported Donald Trump and the idea that the election had been stolen, they were enemies of the government and had to be punished. And to make an example out of them, to scare all of the other people who might stand up and be counted for. But when Trump won the last election, became president again, he issued a pardon for all of the January 6 people who had been convicted. If they were still on trial, he couldn't do anything about that yet. But the Democrats are still waging war. They are looking to weaponize the government further. Donald Trump brought in Elon Musk, whether you like him or dislike him, to run what Trump named the Department of Government Efficiency. Anybody who has ever balanced a checkbook knows that you cannot kite checks and get away with it, except for our federal government. Waste is rampant throughout the bureaucracy inside the Beltway. So Elon Musk was tasked with putting a team together, going through all of the data, and attempting to save taxpayers millions, billions, trillions of dollars. I mean, if you think about it, we spend millions of dollars each month to service the interest on our debt. 30-some trillion dollars in debt. That means Congress has borrowed this much money for pork spending in the bills that they add, take care of their constituents. The bureaucrats are using charge cards willy-nilly with no repercussions. And Elon Musk found a bunch of the waste, mismanagement, fraud. And the Doge team set out to rectify this. But there is a demon rat from Virginia, House of Representatives, Suhas Subramanyam, however you pronounce his name. He has leveled allegations against Elon Musk and Doge, accusing them of criminal activities. And he did this on MSNBC's The Weeknight in a recent appearance. Simone Sanders is the co-host. and she started the discussion by highlighting recent developments with Elon Musk. She noted Musk and his team had installed servers within the White House complex. She asked about the Democratic response, asking, quote, "So what are Democrats going to do about the data? Are you all going to follow up on this?" Close quote. In his response, Subramanian said, quote, "Yeah, I heard he's on some image repair tour. I think the best way for him to repair his image is to reverse all the damage he did to our government, to the American people." He also asserted, quote, "Yeah, those servers are a big issue. We want to continue to investigate that." Close quote. He also intimated that there could be potential legal repercussions, suggesting crimes may have occurred, and vowed to pursue the matter through subpoenas if necessary. So yeah, let's just weaponize the government once more. The Democrats, for whatever reason, they might know because of Act Blue and all the scams that they pull in elections, maybe they've got it rigged for the midterms. Nobody knows. But the Democrats are guaranteeing they will come back in control, and they are going to wreak havoc. When you consider the amount of rhinos that are sitting in the House and Senate, it wouldn't be hard. But do we need a weaponized federal government? Pretty soon, free speech is going to be ended. If you say anything bad about Israel or the Jews, right now you could be targeted. And that's from the Trump administration. Imagine how bad it could be if the demon rats got in there. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the demon rats are anti-Jew, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, blah, blah, blah. I would offer that by recognizing the war crimes that are going on in Gaza, that Israel is perpetrating against the Palestinian peoples, the Democrats aren't wrong on that front. I laughed and talked about Greta Thunberg being on a flotilla with aid going to Gaza, whether it was a publicity stunt or not. She was on the boat. Well, they were interdicted before they got into Israeli waters or into waters off the Gaza Strip by the IDF. They picked up everybody out of the boat and they deported Greta. And the news media would have you believe that instead of using the United Nations to send aid to the Palestinians, that our federal government did it. If, and that's a big word, if our federal government actually ferried aid into the Palestinians on Gaza Strip, good for them. The conditions are atrocious. It is abominable what Israel has done to the Palestinians there in Gaza. They have no food, no water, no electricity. Their entire city has been devastated through bombing. It is a wreck. And it is a war crime, what Netanyahu and the other leaders in the Knesset, as well as the IDF, are doing to the Palestinians. On that, I will agree with the Democrats. But weaponizing government is not the answer. We're supposed to be a republic, a democratic republic. Oh, we're going to ruin democracy. We're ruining democracy. No, you are with your socialist agendas. We need to keep the illegal aliens here. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to give. And it's not just the Democrats. The Republicans are just as guilty for this $30-some trillion deficit. Everybody in Congress should be arrested for dereliction of duty, spending all this money that we don't have. It's idiotic. Speaking of idiotic, gay marriage, how about that? Let's just throw out some more hate speech according to the SPLC. Gay marriage had one intent, and that was to destroy the nuclear family. We need equal rights. No. Until recently, sodomy was a crime. But then we got soft-hearted judges that were not biblical. And they started allowing other philosophies to creep into their judgments. And Obama celebrated the Supreme Court legislating from the bench once again that same-sex marriage was a constitutional right. And all of a sudden it exploded on the scene and everybody was, oh, this is great, everybody's free, everybody can do whatever they want, blah, blah, blah. Republicans even backed, yes, you heard me, Republicans. I didn't say conservatives, I didn't say Christians, although so-called Christians have backed it. But true Christians have never backed gay marriage. But Republicans supported gay marriage. Back in 2022, 71% of U.S. adults supported gay marriage. This is off of a new Gallup poll that just came out. Americans were asked by Gallup, marriages between same-sex couples, should they be recognized by law with the same rights as traditional marriage? Well, only 41% of Republicans now think they should be. Now, the demon rats are nuts. The 88% say that marriage should be legal for anybody. I guess you can marry your dog, according to the demon rats. That'll be fine. But these new numbers, 41% from Gallup, represent the lowest amount of support for same-sex marriage since 2016 when it was 40%. But the support from all Americans is trending downward. In this poll, only 68% of adults think that same-sex marriage should have the same rights by law. Americans were also asked for their views on the moral acceptability of same-sex relations, regardless of legality. Only 38% of Republicans seem to accept that it's morally acceptable. 86% of the demon rats think that it's acceptable. But it is an abomination to God. It tells us that in multiple places, Old Testament and New Testament, that men should not lie with other men. It's an abomination. Speaking of fake Christians, there is a liberal preacher at a Baptist megachurch in Georgia. His name is Jamal Bryant. He's angry that Target has dropped its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. Mr. Bryant is black, and he thinks that Target dropping DEI is a bad problem, and he has joined Al Sharpton in urging black people to boycott Target. They're hoping this boycott will restore DEI to Target, but Mr. Bryant is supposed to be a preacher. And by doing this boycott, by pushing this boycott, he has undermined the gains that true Christians have made in getting the store to remove homosexual-themed children's clothing from their racks. So what do you want, Mr. Bryant? Do you want DEI? Do you want grooming of our youth with homosexual stuff in the children's clothing department? Are you really a Christian? When it was pointed out how heinous the merchandise was that was at Target for children, targeting children with this garbage, Christians boycotted. And the management in Target had to listen. And they removed these items. They also realized that the bulk of their customer base did not accept this woke agenda. In June of 2024, the retailer announced it would no longer sell children's apparel as part of its Pride collection. Yes, June is Pride Month. That's another question that boggles my mind. We give homos, 30 days of June? But the blacks only get 28 days in February for Black History Month? Is that fair? Where's the DEI in that, Mr. Bryant? I cannot believe a so-called pastor would try to pressure Target to force Target to begin selling this queer-themed paraphernalia to children. I don't understand how you can read the King James Bible and come up with the fact that preferential treatment is the way to go. God is no respecter of persons. He doesn't care what color your skin is. He knows your heart. But according to Mr. Bryant, DEI needs to be in place in Target. That's the only way. If this succeeds, if the boycott from the black community succeeds in forcing Target to re-implement DEI and add the homosexual clothing back in, is that of God, Mr. Bryant? That's what I will ask you. Is that of God? I think Al Sharpton is just a worshiper of money. Filthy lucre. Well, we'll move on. I talked about the rampant fraud and abuse going on in our bureaucracy. DOJ found some in the Pentagon, and they got a hold of the Inspector General at the Department of Defense and said, maybe you need to look into this. And they did. And in January, they released a report that found officials failed to properly monitor and review thousands of high-risk transactions made with government-issued cards. It revealed nearly 8,000 transactions totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars made at known high-risk merchants that include casinos, mobile app stores. 3,200 purchases were made at bars, nightclubs, strip clubs, major sporting events. One Air Force cardholder was found to have withdrawn over $10,000 in Maryland casinos using a government travel card. DOJ uncovered the fact the federal government has about 4.6 million active charge cards. There was $40 billion spent in the last fiscal year on these charge cards. $40 billion. Now, some was legit, but hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money was abused by these bureaucrats. The report notes that agencies have consistently failed to use modern data analysis tools to prevent fraud and waste, despite recommendations from the Office of Management and Budget. Isn't that special? Well, we go from there to East Palestine, Ohio, or is it Palestine? In Texas, it's Palestine, so I apologize, Ohioans, if I mispronounce that. But there was a derailment of a chemical car there in East Palestine. The car had carcinogenic chemicals in it. They allowed the rail cars to leak this chemical, this carcinogenic chemical, into the atmosphere. Residents developed rashes. They had headaches. There was death of chickens, pets, marine life, wildlife, because of this derailment and the chemicals that were released into the atmosphere. Do you remember if Joe Biden made a hasty trip to East Palestine to go look and see the damage that was done? Did he go talk to the Ohioans up there and see, are you doing okay? What can we do to help you? I don't know that Biden ever made the trek. Amtrak Joe never got on a train and made the trek to Ohio. If he did, it was way late. It was super slow. After 7 months of the residents dealing with this chemical poisoning them, Biden sent FEMA executive Jim McPherson to assess the status and address unmet needs. Get that? Unmet needs. 7 months later, an investigator with the Government Accountability Project, Leslie Pacey, said, quote, There's White House officials and national security officials discussing the dangers of the cancer cluster potential and the health issues, and discussing whether or not to release the unmet needs report to the public and to the media. Despite these concerns, Biden's administration never released this unmet needs report to the public or media. Never. Is FEMA about a worthless agency? I would say so. They didn't help Hurricane Helene victims. The people in North Carolina got taken care of by the Amish and by citizens of North Carolina and other states that came to help these poor people who were devastated by that hurricane. In Florida, there was a person from FEMA who told people on the ground, if you see a Trump sign, avoid that house. We're not going to deal with those people. Now, she backtracked and said that was what she was instructed to do. Maybe so. But that is inhumane. These are fellow citizens. No matter what side the aisle they have allegiance to. If they think Donald Trump is the best thing since sliced bread, they deserve the same support as somebody who wants to back the Dane-bred Biden or the worthless Kamala. They're Americans. We're supposed to take care of each other. As far as I'm concerned, Trump could do away with FEMA like he wants to do away with the Department of Education. Another group of bureaucrats that are unelected, getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars. You want to start saving tax money? Cut the bloat. Let's go up to Maryland. I have told you about young people graduating from the Maryland high school system, unable to read, to write, barely communicate, but they have a high school diploma. And some of them get accepted into college. There is a problem in Maryland, and it starts with the demon rats that are in office. The judicial system up there is broken. The educational system in Maryland is broken. And the police are hampered by the judicial system. Last month, a 16-year-old male was arrested in connection with 121 car break-ins on one night. He was in custody for 5 hours before a judge said these are not such big things, we need to let him go. He was joined with 2 other teen accomplices. They would walk around with flashlights looking in cars. If there was something they wanted in the car, they'd smash windows and grab. There was one driving a stolen car as a getaway. They stole items from 54 cars in Laurel, Maryland, 67 more in Prince George's, Anne Arundel, and Howard counties on that night. The police chief, Russ Hamill, for Laurel, said, quote, he was released back into the community, back into the environment that allowed him to be out roaming the streets in all of these counties late at night and early in the morning, close quote. But the Department of Juvenile Services said, well, he's a young suspect without a prior record and the crimes aren't violent, so we're going to let him go. What about the people that had their cars broken, tore up, items stolen? That car's got to go in the shop to get fixed. Their insurance payments are going to go through the roof. And we let a punk, thug, and 2 of his cohorts off with barely a slap on the wrist. That's it. 5 hours. Investigators found keys to the stolen car that was used as a getaway vehicle, along with keys to 25 other cars, after issuing a search warrant at the 16-year-old suspect's home. They also found several stolen items. The other 2 juveniles were arrested, but they have been held on other crimes in other jurisdictions. Part of that goes to parenting. What is this child doing out in the middle of the night? Letting him just be a thug, a criminal. You know, the Democrats are big on this pipeline into the penitentiary garbage. By failing to educate, teaching a trade, something that will bring self-respect. punishing those who commit crimes, teaching them a lesson. It falls on deaf ears. Speaking of falling on deaf ears, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, he's on Shark Tank. He's some speculator, venture capitalist dude, seems to know what he's talking about as far as the economy goes. He was on CNN Newsnight, and they had a panel discussion about Trump's tariffs and how it's going to be bad for our employees and our economy, blah, blah, blah. Kevin O'Leary wasn't putting up with that. There was a liberal podcaster by the name of Camille Foster. He says tariffs are detrimental to employment. He said, quote, well, here's a question. What percentage of job loss is fine and okay with the President of the United States? Close quote. Kevin O'Leary said, quote, there's no job loss. We're almost at full employment. What are you talking about? There's no job loss in America. Close quote. On this point, I will argue with Kevin O'Leary. They have doctored the stats to show that unemployment is super low. How many people cannot get a job today? How many people do not want to get a job today? How many people were on unemployment insurance that ran out? And because of the scamdemic and the lockdowns and all of this, when all the dust cleared from that heinous activity by our government, they couldn't get back to work, couldn't find a job. When the insurance runs out for unemployment, they get taken off of the unemployed roll. They have doctored these numbers. So by saying there's no job loss in America, there is. We haven't rectified that by getting industry back into this country. Because we're chasing the almighty dollar, we had so many industries move their production plants overseas because it was cheaper. There are people all over this country who would love to go back to work but can't get a job. So I will disagree with O'Leary here. But Foster says, quote, is the claim that there have been absolutely no jobs lost because of the disruptions created by the tariffs. O'Leary says, you can say that, but you better read the numbers. We're almost full employment. What are you talking about? The economy's on fire. Well, it devolved from there. Another liberal podcaster, Jennifer Welch, said, quote, we are a laughingstock. We're a laughingstock in Europe, a laughingstock in Asia. O'Leary fought back. Quote, that's not what the numbers say. The number one destination for invested capital on earth, still over 50% in America. Right now. I don't know what you're talking about. We're a laughingstock. The money pours in. Trillions of dollars comes to America. Why? Because it's the best place to invest on earth. Now, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that unemployment rate sits at 4.2% in April. Doctored numbers, to be sure. But the economy is on a rebound now that Trump is in the White House and he has enacted some things to take the shackles off of Americans by adding these tariffs and giving incentives to these corporations to bring manufacturing back to the United States. That will create jobs. That will aid the economy even more. Another thing Trump needs to do is build more refinery plants. He wants to drill, baby, drill. We haven't built a new refinery in 30, 40 years. Let's get some new ones online. I'm sure we can work with the EPA and get some guidelines in to where we're not as detrimental to the atmosphere. But we need more refineries. If there were more refineries, the price of gasoline would go down. The cost of plastic goods would go down because that's a petroleum product. The cost of tires, another petroleum product, would go down. Well, that's going to take care of the first half. I want to thank you for tuning in and giving me some of your time. Have to take a brief pause, and when I come back, we're going to dive right back in. You're listening to Power of Prophecy. Stay with us, won't you? I'll be right back. Hello, friends. Jerry Barrett back with you again. I want to tell you about Texas' outstanding, groundbreaking book, DNA Science and the Jewish Bloodline. Who are the Jews? What is their ancestry? Are the Jews a homogeneous race? Are Jews descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Well, today, DNA science reveals that almost all the Jews in the world come from Khazaria. They are not the blood lineage of Abraham and the prophets, but of King Bulan and the pagan peoples of the Caucasus. The ancestors of today's Jews are not Israelites, but are Khazarians. Khazaria's people in the 8th century converted from paganism to Judaism. In the 10th century, these Khazarian Jewish converts emigrated to Eastern Europe and especially Poland and Lithuania. In 1948, the Khazars, erroneously believing themselves to be Jews, arrived in the territory of Palestine and set up the State of Israel. The people of Israel today are virtually all of Khazar Turk-Mongol stock. The Jews have no genetic claims to the land of Israel and no family connection whatsoever to historical Israel. DNA science joins recent discoveries in history and archaeology to present the world with a correct and remarkable picture of the Jewish people. Now, everything changes. 256-page book by Tex Mars. We're only asking $20. Please add $6 shipping and handling. That'll make your total $26 for DNA science and the Jewish bloodline. You can phone us toll-free in the United States and Canada at 1-800-234-9673. If you care to phone us on our regular line, that number is 512-263-9780. We're in the office Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. We accept Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. You can use those same charge cards at our secure shopping cart at powerofprophecy.com. There's an ad for DNA science right there on the main page. Click on it, put in your name, address, charge card, shipping method, hit submit. We'll get it and get it coming to you. Now, if you care to send in a check, money order, or cash, please make your check or money order payable to Power of Prophecy, and you can mail it to us here at 4819 R.O. Drive, Suite 102, Spicewood, Texas, and our zip code is 78669. Okay, and now let's return to our regular program. We are covering Secrets today, Secrets volume number 344, San Francisco. Okay, enough said, right? Oh my, San Francisco. It could be a beautiful place if you were to get rid of the homeless and the needles and the excrement and urine on the sidewalk, clean up the city, put people back to work downtown, make them come into the office. San Francisco could be beautiful, except for the liberal doctrines. It's not just the government of California and San Francisco in particular. It's also the educational system. San Francisco Public Schools announced they were going to abandon a grading plan that would have drastically altered traditional grading methods. This plan would have allowed students to pass with scores as low as 41% and have the ability to retake final exams until they achieve a passing grade. Oh, but there was an uproar. And it wasn't just from parents. It was from students, educators, and the public. So the school system put the kibosh on this stupid idea from Superintendent Maria Sue. Sue had unveiled her plan without even securing a vote from the city's school board. She dubbed it Grading for Equity, and it was part of a large initiative labeled as an example of the soft bigotry of low expectations by critics. The idea of making passing grades virtually impossible to fail was not universally acclaimed, even in this progressive-leaning city. That's part of the shocking part to me. Grading equity. This system would have eliminated homework. There wouldn't have been weekly tests. None of this would have been part of the final grade for each semester. It was only going to be a final exam, and it could be retaken multiple times. Students didn't even have to show up for class on this garbage. That wouldn't affect their grade. It says, quote, under the proposed system, a student could achieve an A with a score as low as 80 and pass with a D with a score as low as 21. Grading for equity. More like grading for idiocy. There are truancy laws in place for a reason. The kids need to be in the school and off the streets where they could wreak havoc. I mean, look at Maryland. That kid should have been home in bed. Instead, he's out breaking into cars, stealing stuff. You want to talk about a pipeline to the penitentiary? That should be it. Well, what happened in the school system? They quit teaching trades. They quit teaching reading, writing, arithmetic. You know, when I was in high school, I took geometry, trigonometry, algebra, and I hated geometry. And I'm thinking, what is this going to do for me? It doesn't mean anything to me. The theorems and all this that you get in the real world. I was an automotive machinist. I built engines for race cars for 10 years. I had to use math every day. My tolerances were in 10,000ths of an inch. Everything had to be measured. And then when I had the opportunity to work on a NASCAR race team, I understood about geometry. It did come in handy. So by taking away these classes from these students who could benefit, we teach them DEI. We teach them sexual education. We teach them about a woke agenda. We have shortchanged the basics for the woke agenda. And this has been going on a lot longer than the last 10 years. Slowly but surely, liberal ideology has infiltrated the education system. Pastor Butch calls it the fool system. He's right. We aren't doing anything but creating automatons and fools who believe everything the government and controlled media tell them. They're taught what to think, not how. And I think the best thing that came out of the scamdemic was homeschooling. People realized the indoctrination centers were poisoning their children's minds, and they started schooling them personally. Why do you think there's such a fight against homeschools now? Because the government knows that they cannot indoctrinate these children. They can't reach them. And they're a potential danger to the future of liberal idiocy. Speaking of liberal idiocy, let's go to Seattle. There was a Christian organization who obtained a permit to hold a rally in Seattle. While they were rallying, spreading their faith message, the loony left counter-rallied without a permit, and they attacked the Christians. 23 of these loony leftists got arrested. So who's to blame? If you're Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell, you, quote, blame a Christian rally and infiltrating anarchists for the violence, close quote. Police witnessed multiple people inside one group throw items at the opposing group. While arresting these thugs, the police were assaulted by other individuals. There was one officer that required medical treatment because of these thugs. But it's the Christians who were to blame, according to Bruce Harrell. Immediately after this, Harrell's office defended the LGBTQ community and blasted far-right members who organized the original rally. The statement said that they were provoking violent reaction from the leftists. But who created the conflict? The loony leftists did. Now Harold wants a review of how a Christian group was even able to obtain a rally permit. Oh, hell in a handbasket, I'm telling you. Here's more from the Maryland Department of Health. They spent $7 million in federal funds on its True You Maryland program, which taught kids about fat pride, about using a gender unicorn for professional development. That's right. The Department of Health and Human Services gave Maryland $1.4 million each year from 2020 to 2024. The money was split between local health departments, Johns Hopkins University, and Healthy Teen Network, a nonprofit that runs the program, True You Maryland. The program included a training session for teachers called More Than Pronouns. Alicia Miller, a community health educator for Wicomico County Health Department, told teachers, quote, children start to recognize their gender identity at about 2 years of age, close quote. There was money spent on fat pride, which included a training session called Body Positive Beginnings in the Tween and Teen Years. Fat pride. Instead of teaching them how to eat healthy, exercise, we just teach them it's okay to be fat. There was another training session that used a purple gender unicorn to teach teachers to differentiate between gender identity, gender expression, and sex assigned at birth. Oh my goodness. Open the Books does great work. They do a lot of digging into the idiocy of these federally funded programs. They found 24 of 100 nonprofits that received the most money from Baltimore City weren't even properly registered as nonprofits. Unbelievable. Let's go to the judicial system. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has said a Christian-owned, women-only Korean spa must allow tranny women, including those who have not undergone reassignment surgery. Olympus Spa has 2 locations in the state of Washington. They were accused of discrimination by a tranny who was denied access to the women's facility. Now, this Korean spa requires that everybody be nude. It's been in place since they opened the business. It's part of the business model that was in place when they started this business. This 3-judge panel, there's Margaret McEwen, appointed by Bill Clinton. There's Ronald Gold, appointed by Bill Clinton. And there's Kenneth Lee, appointed by Donald Trump. Those are the 3 judges that sit on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. In Judge McEwen's opinion, quote, the spa's religious expression is only incidentally burdened. We are not unmindful of the concerns and beliefs raised by the spa. But she drew parallel between the actions of the spa and racism during the civil rights era. She said the spa's exclusion of tranny women was akin to racial segregation. Now, Kenneth Lee, the Trump appointee, accused the state of using its anti-discrimination laws for political gain. He wrote in his dissent, stripping women of protections instead of safeguarding women's rights is what they are doing. The thing is, by allowing fully intact men into the spa, staff is going to be uncomfortable and leave. Customers are going to be uncomfortable and leave. And this business is going to go bankrupt. You can bet this is going to end up in front of the Supreme Court. Whether they take the case or not remains to be seen. But I keep coming back to this cause and effect. This spa is paying taxes in the state of Washington. If this business closes, there's no employees, there's no tax on the business, there's no tax on the employee's earnings. If the spa decides to move to Idaho and they're allowed to operate there without being forced to allow trannies, fully intact men, to parade naked through their establishment, who gains and who loses? Idaho would gain because that's another tax base. That's more money coming into the state coffers. Washington loses. This has happened repeatedly in California. Businesses have fled California because of the idiocy, overtaxation. I don't know when common sense is going to break out. It maybe never. I don't know. The Department of Justice has launched a lawsuit against North Carolina. They say that North Carolina, its Democrat Governor Josh Stein, the State Board of Elections, have failed to maintain an accurate voter list. In this lawsuit, they allege that the state of North Carolina used a state voter registration form that did not require a voter to provide identifying information, such as a driver's license or the last 4 digits of a social security number. Voters were then added to the state's voter registration roll without the required information, and many of these voters remain on the registration rolls without it. This is an affront to common sense. You cannot open a checking account without identification. You can't get insurance for your car without identification. You can't buy a car without identification. So why do people think it's okay to vote without identification? What is so discriminatory about that? Is it discriminatory to require ID to cash a check? The double standard is just mind-boggling. Yeah, I talked about Greta Thunberg. There were a lot of people that were criticizing her activities, joining on the Madeleine that was a humanitarian mission, this vessel. Well, they didn't make it to Gaza, but it did get some publicity, I guess, more for Greta. I think she was in the right this time, even though I think she is a publicity honk. I wish that flotilla had succeeded, would have gotten much needed aid to the Palestinians in Gaza. But for people to get on social media and controlled media and lambast Greta as an anti-Semite and a hater and blah, 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 we need to quit throwing that term around. Jews aren't even Semites. Most of them are from Khazaria, Poland, southern Russia, the Caucasus. They're not even Semites. How can it be anti-Semitic? Goodness. Well, I want to get to this one, because all the riots that went on in L.A. when they were rounding up criminal illegal aliens, whether that's under a misdemeanor for entering the country illegally or some of the heinous crimes that these people have done. The riots, out of control. It was stupid. But it's fueled. This mentality is fueled by the demon rats and controlled media. There is a 4-year-old girl named Sofia Vargas. She's from Mexico, and she's very ill, critically ill. She suffers from short bowel syndrome, where the small intestine is shortened or damaged. It affects about 10 to 20,000 people in America. It requires 14 hours of intravenous nutrition a day to prevent death. The Vargas family entered under Biden's CBP-1 app in July of 2023. They were granted humanitarian parole for the purpose of seeking medical treatment for Sophia. Now, if they were forced to go back to Mexico, this little girl would die. You and I both know that the medical system in Mexico is horrendous. This little girl would die. And it was reported, it was reported that the family received notice that they are no longer in lawful status and now vulnerable to deportation. This was stated by Gina Amato, directing attorney of the Immigrant Rights Project at Public Counsel. And as soon as this was stated, Democrat officials and loony activists jumped all over this story and called Trump sick and hateful things. Senator Alex Padilla got on Twitter May 29th, said, quote, a 4-year-old girl was legally admitted to the U.S. to access essential health care for a life-threatening condition. Now the Trump administration is forcing her family to leave despite doctors warning it could kill her. Gavin Newsom, May 30th, Twitter, quote, the GOP are sending a 4-year-old off to her death without a care in the world. It's sick. Senator Roland Gutierrez of Texas, Twitter, May 28. Trump is ordering a critically ill 4-year-old girl deported. She was granted humanitarian entry in 2023. Sophia needs round-the-clock IV nutrition and regular specialist visits. If Trump has his way, she will die. Brian Krasenstein, May 28. Meet Sophia. She suffers from short bowel syndrome and relies on 14 hours of intravenous nutrition each day. Every 6 weeks, she must visit a hospital in L.A. Without this care, she will die. Out of all of them, that's the truest statement. But according to an official with Department of Homeland Security, in a statement, they said that Sophia is not only not being actively deported, but her family's application for humanitarian parole is still under consideration. Fake news strikes again. And the loony left politicians that foment this idiocy should be ashamed of themselves. Be an adult. Get your facts straight. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. I've not had some kind things to say about her. I think she's an idiot. I think she's ruining D.C. with her policies. But maybe she is seeing the light. According to this report, Muriel Bowser is trying to dismantle Washington, D.C.'s sanctuary law. Her proposal seeks to overturn the law that prevents local law enforcement from collaborating with ICE in fighting against illegal immigration. Bowers' initiative to repeal this sanctuary city law is discreetly embedded in her 2026 budget proposal. The strategic inclusion suggests a calculated effort to minimize public attention and potential backlash. The final decision will be made by the D.C. Council. Some of these progressive members on the D.C. Council will probably resist Bowser's efforts. But it's 180 degrees from when she said that D.C.'s status as a proud sanctuary city from back in 2015. Proud sanctuary city. Now, I talked about the riots a minute ago, but I got to say this. Controlled media has dusted off the George Floyd playbook and played it to the hilt. You know what I'm talking about. Mostly peaceful protests. Demon rat politicians have got on TV and said these protests are mostly peaceful. Mostly peaceful. Meanwhile, in the background, they're showing cars on fire. Mostly peaceful. Was it mostly peaceful when that row of robo-taxis was torched? They're EVs. How many people are going to be shocked when they get deathly ill because of the chemicals that burned on those EVs? And they were so proud they set all those Waymos on fire. One idiot standing there holding a Mexican flag standing on the roof. He's got a bandana on his face because he doesn't want to get identified. Mostly peaceful. I saw a video where government vehicles were going down the road and these mostly peaceful protesters were throwing rocks at the windshields and at the vehicles, endangering the men and women inside these vehicles. mostly peaceful people had CHP and LA cops under a bridge while they were lighting fireworks and stuff and setting police cars on fire on the freeway. Mostly peaceful, I say. Mostly peaceful. You remember back in Kenosha, Wisconsin, CNN had a reporter with a building behind the reporter entirely engulfed in flames? And they ran the little caption underneath, mostly peaceful. Mostly peaceful. It started at MSNBC in 2020. It went viral, so they say, on all the controlled media, mostly peaceful protesters. But there was violence, looting going on in L.A., but they were mostly peaceful. They're disgruntled young people. They were attacking law enforcement officials, but they're mostly peaceful. This is a protection racket being foisted upon the gullible masses by controlled media. CNN wonders why their numbers are going down. It's because they're fake. They're propagandists. They don't care about telling you the news. They even found a body on the street during this protest. A body, dead. But it was mostly peaceful, CNN, MSNBC. Mostly peaceful. They made a ruckus about ICE going to the day labor area at Home Depot. That was, I think, might have been the starting point for a lot of the unrest. You said you're here for criminals, and you're going to the day labor spot. Who knows what kind of criminals were there? But these people, legal and illegal, whatever they are, mind-controlled is what they are. They're not supporting law enforcement. They're not supporting, the city leaders aren't even helping the law enforcement. Bass is a piece of trash. Newscomb is a piece of trash. But during the roundup in L.A. by ICE, let me give you a couple of people who they rounded up and caught. Rolando Venaceron Enriquez from the Philippines. Prior convictions for sexual crimes, assault with intent to commit rape, burglary. All of this happened in California. Why wasn't he deported? Oh, that's right, California's sanctuary state. Armando Ordaz, a Mexican national, gang member, convictions for sexual battery, receiving stolen property, theft in L.A. Not deported because, well, he's sanctuary state. Victor Mendoza Aguilar, previously deported, Mexican national, known gang member, convictions for assault with a deadly weapon, possession of drug paraphernalia. Delfino Aguilar Martinez, a Mexican national, conviction for assault with a deadly weapon causing great bodily injury. That happened in L.A. Why are people defending these thugs from getting arrested and deported, sent to prison in their home country? The idiocy is rampant and it drives me bonkers. Oh, my. Hopefully common sense will break through, but I don't know. We are in dire straits, America. We are in dire straits. But true Christians have Jesus. We have a blessing. And I want to thank you for blessing me with listening to me for an hour again this week. And I pray you will tune in again next week at this same time. Tune in and discover the power of prophecy.